Hey guys, Will Chandler here, Guardian Fury. I wanted to cover a little bit of what happened yesterday during my 4-hour meeting with the elder. It was two of them for most of the time, and one of them had to get going. And anytime I meet with them, I've just gone with the flow. Whatever their timeline is, I go with. Anyway, so the reason it lasted so long yesterday was the younger elder kept the conversation going, so I just went with it. One of the things they covered in the Bible Teach book they have was about Bible prophecy, and the example they give, and of course this sets things up for later, is the example they give of Bible prophecy is Babylon being destroyed in 539 BCE. And that's the example they use in the Bible Teach book. And of course, that's what they're doing there is planting the seed for setting up the date of 1914. And so I got into 1914 with them some. And because what happened is they bring up Babylon and Babylon's destruction during the discussion we're having, the quote-unquote Bible study. And so I said, yeah, you know how they came to that date? And so we got talking about the cuneiform tablets, the star charts that exist, and I explained to them that you can literally rewind the stars in the sky. You got multiple computer programs that can do that nowadays. You can put a date and a history in, and you can actually rewind the heavens, if you will. You can look at the star charts. And so that's how we know, based on historical record, based on star charts, based on the cuneiform tablets that we have from Babylon, that's how you establish the date of 539. And so then I said, well, here's the problem with that. It's those same tablets that give you the date 539 that also give you the date 587 for the destruction of Babylon, and that also lines up with the chronology and I think Kings of when the destruction of Babylon would have been. And, they're trying to say, well, no, not really, there's no proof. I was like, no, there is 100% proof for 587. And even in your own Watchtower magazine, they admitted, there's a little asterisk in one of the paragraphs, and they admitted that there is no secular authority, there's no archaeologist, there's no one that agrees with the date of 607. The only people that think it was 607 is the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society. And they know it's not 607, let's be honest. And so I bring that stuff up, and then they start going down the road of trying to say, well, apostates have said this and that. And I looked at them and I said, well, have you actually read anything that apostates have said on the matter? I said, I did 2.5 months of research on my own to verify what date it was that Babylon was destroyed, and what I came up with through research in the Bible and through secular research and archaeology, that's all included. I came up with agreement on the date of 587, that it's pretty much a closed book. And so then they try to go down the road of, well, apostates say this and that. And I said, well, have you actually ever looked at the research done? Have you actually looked at what quote-unquote apostates are saying? And they says, well, no, we haven't actually looked at it. I said, so it's hearsay. So what you're telling me is hearsay. You haven't actually done the research. You don't actually know. You haven't gone to the secular sources like I have. So you're just repeating what someone else has told you, and you have no proof. That's not admissible in any chain of evidence, courts, anything. That's complete hearsay. So, I said, you can't sit here and tell me all these evil things apostates have said and that they're not true when you haven't actually even looked at them. It's hearsay. And they didn't really know how to respond to that. How can you respond to that? Because it's a simple truth right there, right? And at some point we got into and this was after the one elder, the older elder left, and so it was me and the younger elder sitting there at the Kingdom Hall, and there's fluorescent lights in there, but they had someone behind me, but not in front of me, so that helps a little bit, and so I was getting pretty, my eyes were getting pretty done, especially after 4 hours of it, but it wasn't directly in my face, so that's good. Anyway, so we got talking about, somehow we got on the topic of consequences for your actions. And it made me think of that thing that Ultimate Mordecai and Sin City Preacher were doing the other night on looking into, I think it was 1 Corinthians chapter 13, and the second verse there that says that, it's talking about obeying the authorities, those in power. It's talking about the earthly, like governmental authorities, and it says if you don't obey them, the general gist, it says you're going to have condemnation. And as Mike pointed out, Mike Leray, that it is, the Greek word used there is a judicial verdict. So it's saying if you don't respect the governmental authorities, you're going to be hauled in court, you're going to get in trouble, you're going to have these verdicts against you. And I said, well, why don't we apply that to modern day then? If you want to talk about consequences for your actions, and that you're supposed to be obeying the authorities, and what happens if you don't? And I said, look at the court cases around the world. Look at what's happening in Europe right now. I brought up the stuff that's been coming out with like Belgium and I brought up multiple countries and cases, and I said, and look at what happened in California when you guys were paying $4,000 a day because you were defying the California court system. And of course, he's trying to cut me off through this. He doesn't want to hear it. He's like, no, I don't want to hear anything. And I'm like, well, he said the devil can be corrupt in that. And I said, well, it's, a lot of that came straight from Philip Brumley, who's, a lot of this stuff is from him. He's the lead counsel for the Watchtower Society. And so during that, he's upset because I'm finishing my sentences. He doesn't want to hear. He doesn't want to hear what he would consider to be a negative view of things. And I said, well, I asked him, well, are you just going to bury your head in the sand? And I also got back into that point about trusting men versus trusting God. and so he was uncomfortable with some of the conversation. But again, he started that part of the conversation. And what I ended up saying by the end of it yesterday is, I told him, I'm trying to figure out what because then after we went outside afterwards, and we're in the shade by my truck, and I just needed to get out of the fluorescent lights. I was in a lot of pain. I couldn't stand there anymore, even though it wasn't directly in my face. It was behind me. Still, the fluorescent wavelength is hard on my retinas. And so I end up telling him, we definitely approach life different. We approach things different. For me, if I know about an injustice, I'm gonna fight it as much as I can, and I'm fine with going up the chain. Even like when I was in the military, I didn't have any problem going all the way up the chain of command if something wasn't right. I got no problem going to the top. It doesn't, I feel like I'm supposed to, And so what I told him, I said, you know what, you're not comfortable with addressing the child protection and how your organization has failed completely worldwide, has failed to protect kids. And I said, I'm trying to see it from your perspective. I have a hard time doing that. And I said, let's get down to the heart of the matter for me then is, if I'm going to ask something of you, that if you ever come across a case like mine, that please protect the kids. I said, please do not listen to what the legal department says. Do not take direction that would then not do everything you could to protect these kids. Because my life is an example of being failed by that. And I just said, please, all I'm asking of you then, I'll drop the rest of it. is to please, if you ever come across a case like this, do everything in your power to protect these innocent kids. And he said he would. I hope he would. And it was interesting too, but near the end of our conversation, he seemed to bring up a few things that, because he got uncomfortable with some of where the conversation went, right? And then he brings up how I'm dressed. Like, I'd gone to the gym right before going to meet with them for the Bible study, and he's like, and you show up here in shorts and a t-shirt. I'm like, it's not a meeting time, and if you're at my house, this is the same stuff I'd be wearing, and you already know that I'm not going to change my dress for men. I said, but how is it an issue that I showed up to the Kingdom Hall where you asked me to come for a Bible study? I didn't ask you to go there. But you're taking it offensively that I showed up in shorts and a t-shirt. Like, again, they're looking at their own. It just doesn't, it doesn't pass the test at all biblically. And I do dip sometimes, Copenhagen, and usually when my pain's bad. And so when I went out to my truck, I put a dip in, and I'm in the very back of the parking lot, like right on the edge of it. There's like a little bit of woods and a hill down the way. And so then he's like, and then you're over here putting a dip in. And I was like, that this is the second time you've seen me dip, and that I've been in a lot more pain lately. And that before, I hadn't dipped in like 8 months before that or something like that. It had been a while either. I don't know exactly the dates, but, and, my eyes are calming down now from everything, and I'm going to be stopping again very soon, but I'm not on any narcotics. I can only take so much Motrin. And when my pain gets bad, unfortunately, the nicotine does help. But I also, everything in moderation, right? Like, you gotta still watch it. You gotta be careful with it, because it is addictive. But at the same time, what are my options? Someone like me, I'm not gonna go after the struggle I had with the drugs that the Army put me on. I'm not gonna go back to any hard drugs. It's just I won't do it. So if sometimes I have to use some Copenhagen to help with my pain levels, I'm going to. But then he's like, and here you are in your shorts, and you're dipping and you're spitting behind your truck in the parking lot. And I look back and I was like, yeah, I guess it is technically the parking lot, because like it was like right on the edge, like it was like a few inches over, it was dirt, But he's in his head, he's looking at outward stuff that doesn't mean anything to anyone but Jehovah's Witnesses, and trying to somehow then I can see that he's coming up with reasons not to have anything to do with me, right? And so what happened is, later yesterday, I sent him a text. And I asked him about the Bible study questions. And I said, as of May 13th, they're changing, the baptism questions. As of May 13th, they're changing the baptism questions again. And again, it's not as laid out in the Bible. It doesn't say baptizing in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. And I said, I don't understand how they, why they're changing it again, and they're still not following the biblical guidelines. And I sent him that. He sent me a reply back. This was about like 5 in the afternoon. And his reply back to me was, maybe you should pray about it. And I thought that was kind of funny, because I give you a scriptural verse of how baptism should be done. Your organization blatantly doesn't do that, and you tell me to pray about it. I don't need to pray about it. I'm good, I know if you're going to say you follow the Bible, I know what the guidelines are, in that respect at least. And so then at about 11, Hershey, quit. He wants to play. I'll play with him in a minute. So then at about 11:20, 11:30, he sends me a text, asks if I'm still awake. And I say yes, and a few minutes later he sends me a text that says, after thinking and praying about the matter, I feel it would be in my best interest to discontinue our studies. As you have mentioned on a few occasions, you are surprised that we were able to study as long as we have, considering the challenges we have encountered, and honestly I am too. So he puts it on me a little bit there. He says that I was surprised that we are able to continue studying. No, I said that I'm surprised he talks to me. Like, I've told him many times, I don't have an issue. I'm good. You know? I have been surprised, though, that it's taken this long for him to do it. And so I replied to him, you're breaking up with me over text. And I put a ... And then he replies back to that. So he's starting to break up with me with his, Bible study. But he's doing it over text, right? So I call him on it. I say, you're breaking up with me over text. And he says, no, sir. I sent a little smiley face like, really? And then he continues. So he says he's starting to break up with me. Then I call him, and then he says no. And then he continues to over text break up with me. So it says there are a lot of underlying factors, some of which I know you are aware of. And even if you are not, I am confident that you are intelligent enough to come to the proper conclusion. But I want to let you know that a major reason for me personally is this. While I appreciate your honesty and frankness, I must say that your way of thinking regarding many topics is not one that I desire to adopt. Your way of expressing your views, though unintentional or intentional, I feel repeatedly expose me to a very critical and distrustful view of our organization. Now wait for it here. Listen to this. One that has been shaped by your past and is not easy to undo. And I was upfront about all of that. So again, here we go back to victim blaming. It's now my fault, and it's now my issue because of how I was betrayed by the Watchtower hierarchy. So, one that has been shaped by your past and is not easy to undo. I treasure the Bible knowledge I have gained through Jehovah's help, which I am convinced he is providing through his organization. And then he puts down correction that I don't desire to adopt. So he says he doesn't want to adopt my way of thinking. So he doesn't want to look at things in a manner with common sense. He wants to fully trust in men, as he had stated many times yesterday. And he doesn't like it when I call him and say, well, aren't you just burying your head in the sand? And I asked him that. I said, why do you choose to bury your head in the sand when this is men we're talking about, not God? And, whatever. And it says, so, if there are specific doctrinal concerns that you have that you honestly feel you would like our understanding of, then I would suggest that you bring them to the attention of any elder as the need arises. In the meantime, I think attending the meetings on a regular basis, if you desire to. Now, I haven't been as regular at meetings lately either, right? Because I was out of town, then I was recovering from my eyes, then I've had family stuff going on. So, I haven't gone to the Kingdom Hall as regularly the last month, right? So, again, I'm not showing progress as a study to them, right? Because I won't conform to their dress standards that are man-made, and because I haven't been regular at their meetings, even though some of it has been for medical reasons, and some of it was because I simply wasn't in town. So, in the meantime, I think attending the meetings on a regular basis, if you desire to, can potentially lay to rest most of your doubts. Now, all it's done, every meeting attendance I've had, is it just brings up more doubts, is all it's done. And I wrote back to him that, I pray that God blesses him, something like that, and that he have a good night. And, he writes back, I pray the same to you, have a good night. It says, then I chose to text you rather than face to face because it allowed me time to think about specifically what and how I wanted to express myself. I hope you understand. Good night. And I wrote back, it's far easier and less stress/anxiety inducing versus in person. There's nothing negative on my end. So I did call him a little bit on not doing it face to face. And one of the texts, it looks like it's not showing on my tablet some of the texts I sent. But one of the things I sent to him after he's talking about the negative view of the organization, I wrote out Psalm 146:3, where it states to not put your trust in princes and men, because in them no salvation lies. And I said, now, as per our earlier conversation, so not putting your trust in men is clearly stated in this verse and other verses. And now, does our conversation earlier, is that a conflict with the Bible, or does our conversation conflict with your organization? Because I said on the broadcast, Garrett Loesch and others have directly stated that you are to trust in them. You are to trust in men. So, does this scripture conflict with the rest of the Bible, or does this scripture conflict with your organizational standards? And that's as far as I pushed anything. So it's not am I being negative about your organization? Yeah, but why? If you want to talk negative, but is it really that I'm just being negative? In my view, I'm just sharing some simple things that are easy to fact check, right? It's not hard to fact check me. And I'm not going to be pushy with the guy either, because I know he has anxiety issues. He's talked about that. And just as many of the Jehovah's Witnesses, we know that many of them are on medication for anxiety, and it's we all know why that is. It sucks being in a high control group. It's no fun, and it's very detrimental to you psychologically, let alone mentally, spiritually, whatever the other terms you want to use. It's all detrimental. So I just wanted to share with you guys some of the text there, and I don't know, I'll figure out what else to do next. But I got broken up with over text last night, so I thought that was pretty hilarious. But anyway, this is Will Chandler. You guys have a good one.